After facing rejection as a mail-order bride due to her infertility, Scarlett Mercer discovers unexpected allies in the three children who select her as their mother in 1885 Montana. Can she demonstrate her significance in a society that evaluates a woman's worth based on her ability to bear children? A frozen tear glistened on Scarlett Mercer's cheek as she gazed through the frost-covered train window. The vast Montana landscape unfolded endlessly in front of her, a pristine sheet of white, reminiscent of the unpredictable future that lies ahead of her. The metal tin gripped in her gloved hands was icier than the February air filtering through the carriage walls. Within rested her most treasured item, a locket holding her mother's image, and a solitary auburn curl, the last remnants of the woman who had shown her how to confront life's harshness with unwavering strength. The last destination is nearing Willow Creek Station. The conductor's voice resonated through the almost vacant car, jolting an elderly woman who had been peacefully dozing across the aisle. Scarlett's heart raced within her chest. After 23 days of travel, 3 train changes, and countless hours of uncertainty, she had at last arrived at her destination. On that platform stood Benjamin Blackwood, a widower and father of 3, poised to become her husband, unless, of course, he cast a glance her way and reconsidered. "Are you certain this is your stop, miss?" The conductor regarded her urban attire with a hint of skepticism. "Willow Creek offers little beyond the ranch families in the trading post." "I'm anticipated," Scarlett responded, raising her chin just a bit. She omitted the 4 months of letters exchanged, the meticulously crafted advertisement in the matrimonial news, or the medical certificate tucked between the pages of her Bible, the one detailing why, at 28, she would never have children. The train's whistle cut through the icy atmosphere as the locomotive began to decelerate. Scarlett clutched her solitary trunk, disappointingly light for someone bidding farewell to their entire existence. Her worldly possessions consisted of 3 dresses, some undergarments, her mother's cherished recipe book, the medical certificate, and the letters from Mr. Blackwood. There's little to display after almost 30 years of existence. She glimpsed her reflection in the window pane. Fair complexion, shadows under eyes resembling honey, and strands of chestnut hair slipping out from her functional bonnet. Would she possess enough beauty? "Are you sufficiently skilled?" The physician in Boston had deemed her fundamentally lacking as a woman, phrases that had embedded themselves in her heart like shards of glass. With a final screech of metal against metal, the train came to a halt, shuddering in its wake. The platform emerged from the swirling snow, a solitary wooden structure with a lone lamp flickering even in the daylight. A tall figure loomed in the distance, separated from the 2 others who were eagerly anticipating the arrival of the mail. "Do you require assistance with your trunk, madam?" the conductor inquired, his hand moving toward it already. "Thanks a lot." Scarlett adjusted her travel-worn skirt, secured the locket, and inhaled deeply, summoning her courage. The frigid air snatched away that breath in an instant. The wind sliced through her coat, which was suitable for Boston's winters but utterly inadequate against Montana's brutal cold. As she made her way down the steps, the sound of her boots crunching on the snow filled the air, her gaze locked onto the figure drawing nearer. Benjamin Blackwood loomed larger than she had envisioned from his correspondence, his broad shoulders filling out a heavy sheepskin coat, a hat pulled low to shield against the biting wind. As he took it off, she was taken aback by the sight of copper-colored hair, flecked with premature gray at the temples. His letters revealed nothing about his age, which was surprisingly youthful, nor did they describe his looks, which were more striking than she had ever imagined. "Miss Mercer," his voice resonated with a commanding depth, but there was an undercurrent of doubt. "Mr. Blackwood," she offered her gloved hand, battling the tremor that was unrelated to the chill in the air. "I have arrived as I said I would." He grasped her hand for a moment, his blue eyes, strikingly vivid against his wind-kissed complexion, scrutinizing her with an unguarded evaluation. His eyes held on her face for a moment, then traveled down to her modest form before coming back to connect with her gaze. "Greetings to the land of Montana." He let go of her hand and pointed to a wagon that was waiting. "The terrain is challenging, yet it rewards those who honor its essence." Was that a cautionary note? Scarlett found it difficult to discern, as months of letters had shown a man who spoke little yet held steadfast beliefs. A man, bereaved by the loss of his wife to influenza 2 years earlier, now finds himself the sole caretaker of 3 children and the responsibilities of a ranch to manage on his own. "Is your home far from here?" she inquired, trailing behind him as they approached the wagon. "7 miles ahead. The roads are mostly clear, but we ought to make haste. Tempests rolling down from the peaks." With a graceful motion, he hoisted her trunk into the wagon bed, then extended his hand to assist her as she ascended to the wooden seat. The wagon bench pressed unyieldingly against her weary form. Mr. Blackwood draped a buffalo robe around her legs before settling down next to her. The unanticipated act of kindness released a tension that had been gripping her heart. "Was your journey satisfactory?" he inquired as the horses advanced, their breath forming wisps in the icy atmosphere. "Absolutely. I appreciate it." She paused for a moment, then inquired, "How are your children doing?" A brief glimmer of emotion, maybe pride, danced across his weathered features. "They can't wait to meet you, particularly Charlotte. She's 4 and hasn't ceased her chatter about wanting a mother again, ever since your letter came with the tintype." The tiny photograph had set Scarlett back almost a week's salary from her teaching job, yet she felt compelled to send something, ensuring the children could ready themselves and avoid any disappointment upon her arrival. "What about Mason?" "Is that you, Amelia?" she inquired, recalling the names mentioned in his correspondence. Mason, at 8 years old, is battling a chest cold, displaying the same stubbornness that his mother once had. "Amelia," he hesitated, giving the reins a gentle flick. "Amelia's 10, and still feeling the absence of her mama deeply. She may need a little while to open up to you." The wagon reached the top of a hill, unveiling a valley that lay beneath like a pristine white blanket. A 2-story farmhouse rose majestically among various outbuildings, with smoke gracefully spiraling from 2 chimneys. Beyond, fenced pastures unfolded, a creek bordered by bare-branched cottonwoods meandered, and endless snow-blanketed plains converged with distant mountains. "It's stunning," Scarlett murmured, truly feeling it despite the bleakness. "It's challenging," Benjamin amended, though his voice became gentler, particularly for women not accustomed to it. The declaration lingered in the air, thick with unvoiced inquiries. As the wagon rolled down into the valley, Scarlett sensed the heavy burden of her secret resting heavily on her heart. Would she muster the bravery to reveal her truth before they exchanged vows? Would she prioritize securing her role, ensuring she became essential to the children before facing the possibility of rejection? The physician's voice resonated within her thoughts. "Your womb bears scars that render it non-functional, Miss Mercer. You will never have the opportunity to bring forth life. I suggest you come to terms with the idea of remaining single." Instead, she had responded to an advertisement looking for a mother, rather than just a means to bear more children. Was that untruthful? The moral dill Charlotte consumed her thoughts as the farmhouse loomed closer in her sight. A petite silhouette sprang from the entrance, fiery locks trailing behind her as she dashed toward the oncoming wagon. "Father! Father! Is she present? Did you bring our new mother?" The sound of the child's voice resonated distinctly through the snowy landscape. Benjamin's expression shifted, altering his features completely. "That's Charlotte," he remarked, a smile gracing his lips for the first time. "That one is always on the move." The wagon came to a halt, and Charlotte was already there, bouncing on her toes, her mittened hands clapping in pure excitement. "Are you Miss Sophia? Will you take on the role of our caretaker now? Are you familiar with tales?" The teacher claims that every mother possesses tales to share. A deluge of inquiries. The optimistic visage was lifted towards hers. It was overwhelming. Emotions surged within Scarlett as she grasped the magnitude of her undertaking. These children were in search of a maternal figure. They were worthy of a complete partner, one who could offer them everything. Yet, as she gazed into Charlotte's enthusiastic expression, Scarlett silently pledged herself. Though she may not have the ability to bear children, her love for these 3 would be as fierce as if they had blossomed within her own heart. If Benjamin would accept her, despite her flaws. "Yes, I'm Miss Sophia," she replied, accepting Benjamin's assistance as he helped her down from the wagon. "And I possess countless tales." Charlotte's tiny hand found its way into hers, gently pulling her toward the house where 2 more children stood eagerly in the doorway. A girl of considerable height, exuding an air of seriousness, accompanied by a slender boy whose hair mirrors his father's copper hue. Behind them, Benjamin collected her trunk, his face a mask of emotions as he observed his children guiding their possible mother toward the life she yearned to embrace. The aroma of freshly baked bread and brewing coffee filled the air, with a comforting warmth emanating from the cast-iron stove that took center stage along one wall of the Blackwood farmhouse. Scarlett sat rigidly at the polished wooden table, her hands clasped around a steaming mug, observing Benjamin as he read the letter that would probably bring everything to a halt before it even started. The night had enveloped everything in its deep embrace. The children, their bellies full and their protests fading, were finally tucked into bed, though their curiosity about the newcomer lingered in the air, now hushed upstairs. In the stillness, the only sounds were the steady ticking of the mantel clock and the rare pop from the stove. "Baron," Benjamin uttered the word with a monotone delivery, his gaze unwavering on the doctor's letter. The clinical description of her condition, articulated in a manner designed to extinguish any flicker of hope, lay bare between them like an unhealed wound. Indeed, Scarlett found it impossible to cushion the reality with justifications or elaborations. The influenza that had almost taken her life at 16 had etched scars far deeper than those apparent on her skin. "I ought to have informed you prior to my arrival." Indeed, it would have been wise to do so. His tone conveyed neither frustration nor blame, something nearly more dreadful: letdown. "Your advertisement said you were looking for a mother for your children," she said, her fingers tightening around her mug. It was not specified. "A man creates a family alongside his wife," Benjamin interjected, finally raising his gaze. The glow of the lamp highlighted the contours of his face, with shadows accentuating the creases around his eyes. "Children will tend to the land once I'm no longer here, continuing the vision I've established, the aspiration of every trailblazer, a legacy, something she was unable to offer." "I understand if you want to end our arrangement," Scarlett said, gathering her composure despite the embarrassment flushing her face. As I prepare to head east, I recall the spring when he interrupted, meticulously folding the letter with intention. The passes pose significant risks already. No stagecoach will dare to take them on until at least April. April. 3 months spent in the same space as the man who had turned her away, observing the children she had already started to cherish from a distance. "Maybe I could remain in town," she proposed, even though her finances would scarcely stretch to accommodate a week's stay. Benjamin gave a slight shake of his head. "The closest boarding house is located 20 miles away in Bozeman. Road closures may occur at any moment." He stood moving restlessly to the window where snow began to fall once more, thick flakes aglow in the light of the lamp. "You will be accommodated in the guest room. If you're open to it, please assist with the children. They have been deprived of adequate education for far too long." The setup was logical, but it carried the weight of confinement. 3 months of demonstrating her capabilities, fully aware that it would fall short. "What comes after spring?" she inquired softly. "I will cover your return travel expenses." His voice took on a gentler tone. "This situation is far from what we envisioned, Miss Mercer." The clock struck 9, each chime marking the end of a cherished aspiration. Scarlett wavered on unsteady legs, desperate for an escape before her facade shattered entirely. She expressed her gratitude for the warm hospitality. "If you'll excuse me," Benjamin said, his gaze still fixed on the window. "Charlotte has already developed quite an affection for you." The silence lingered in the air, thick with unexpressed significance. They were acutely aware of the speed at which children developed bonds and the profound impact of betrayal on their emotions. Just as Scarlett was about to open the door, he called out to her once more. "My wife, Rebecca, desired to expand our family." His voice carried a gentle quality that was new to me. The physician cautioned her after Mason expressed that her heart couldn't endure another pregnancy. She ignored the words. The revelation left Scarlett stunned. His correspondence had noted the passing of his wife due to illness rather than childbirth. "I'm sorry," she whispered, grasping the depths of his sorrow. 3 months, he reiterated, turning to lock eyes with her from across the kitchen. "We will prioritize the well-being of the children until that time arrives." A door creaked upstairs. Benjamin's head pivoted in the direction of the noise. "Mason's nighttime cough has intensified. Rebecca once did." The sentence faded away, yet Scarlett grasped the meaning. Some wounds remain forever unhealed, merely covered by the passage of time. She offered, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. that she knew remedies for chest congestion. My mother had a remarkable talent for working with herbs. For an instant, a glimmer of appreciation passed over Benjamin's expression. Then it disappeared, supplanted by the measured detachment she was beginning to identify as his armor. Please take a moment to rest, Miss Mercer. The dawn breaks swiftly on a ranch. With a sense of resignation, Scarlett ascended the narrow staircase to the guest room that would serve as her temporary refuge. The area was compact, yet tidy, a solitary bed adorned with a vibrant quilt, accompanied by a pine dresser and a washstand featuring a delicate china basin. A small bouquet of dried lavender rested on the windowsill, a gesture of kindness that brought a sting of unshed tears to her eyes. With a sense of routine, she methodically unpacked her sparse belongings, draping dresses in the wardrobe and setting her recipe book and Bible on the bedside table. Finally, she put on the locket, wearing it around her neck as she slipped into her nightgown. A gentle tap broke the silence as she readied herself for the night. Quickly draping a shawl over her shoulders, Scarlett swung the door open to reveal Charlotte, her bare feet visible beneath her nightgown, copper curls tousled around her face. The child whispered, "Mason's coughing really badly. He mentions experiencing pain in his chest." In that instant, Scarlett encountered a decision that would change everything. She could guide Charlotte back to bed, upholding the careful distance that Benjamin's rejection required. Or she could heed her heart, the one aspect of her that functioned flawlessly. "Show me," she murmured, extending her fingers toward the girl's tiny hand. In the soft glow of a solitary candle, Mason's room exuded a quiet intimacy. The boy lay curled on his side, his frail shoulders trembling with every harsh cough. Upon catching sight of Scarlett, a glimmer of caution danced across his fevered expression. He struggled to speak through his coughs, saying, "I'm not meant to disturb you." "You're not a bother at all," Scarlett reassured him, moving closer to check his forehead. The warmth emanating from his skin validated her doubts. "Charlotte made the right choice to fetch me," a third voice chimed in from the doorway. "He has been unwell for 3 days. Papa experimented with mustard plasters, yet they caused too much pain." Amelia lingered in the doorway, her flowing nightgown giving her an ethereal presence, reminiscent of a specter. Her dark eyes, reminiscent of her father's, scrutinized Scarlett with clear doubt. "I am aware of softer solutions," Scarlett remarked, holding the girl's gaze firmly. "Could you assist me in crafting one?" The inquiry, recognizing Amelia's position as the oldest, was more of an invitation than a directive, and it appeared to catch the girl off guard. Following a brief pause, she gave a nod. After 20 minutes, Benjamin discovered everyone gathered in the kitchen. Mason nestled in a blanket at the table, savoring honey lemon water as Scarlett guided Amelia through the process of mixing herbs for a poultice. Charlotte sat on a stool, intently cutting strips of pristine cloth as Scarlett watched over her with a careful eye. Benjamin lingered in the doorway, his gaze fixed on the domestic tableau, his expression a puzzle that left Scarlett bewildered. At last, he spoke, breaking the silence with the admission that the coughing had roused him from sleep. "I contemplated." Scarlett assured him that Mason would find comfort soon, her voice steady and composed. "This solution has benefited numerous children in Boston." For a fleeting instant, she entertained the notion that he could command them all to return to their slumber. Instead, he moved over to Mason, placing a firm hand on the boy's head. "Feeling improved, my boy?" Mason nodded, gazing up at his father with eyes full of trust. "Miss Sophia claims that the honey envelops my throat, preventing the cough from irritating it." "Is that so?" Benjamin's eyes moved to Scarlett, a fresh intensity in his demeanor. Not exactly gratitude, but maybe a reconsideration. "I'll stay with him tonight," Scarlett said, "to ensure the fever doesn't escalate." "I'll stay too," Amelia declared. She raised her chin defiantly. Benjamin glanced back and forth between them, then gave a slow nod. "First lights in 5 hours. Don't push yourselves too hard." Just as he was about to walk away, Charlotte's voice rang out behind him. "Is Papa around?" I mentioned that Miss Sophia would make a wonderful mother. The pure words halted everyone in their tracks. Scarlett sensed a flush creeping to her cheeks as Benjamin's posture became rigid. Gradually, he pivoted, his gaze locking onto hers from across the kitchen. "It appears that Miss Sophia possesses a variety of talents that we were previously unaware of," he remarked thoughtfully. "We are truly lucky to have her with us this evening." It wasn't an acknowledgement of her enduring role in their lives. Yet, as Scarlett locked eyes with him, she discerned something of equal significance. Honor. A starting point, potentially, for what could evolve into something greater, with patience and care. With Benjamin's departure from the kitchen, Scarlett dove back into her poultice crafting, her determination reignited. Though she may not have the ability to bear children, she possesses the power to heal them, educate them, and love them deeply. Maybe that will suffice for the time being. Mason's breathing became more relaxed as she gently placed the warm poultice on his chest. Amelia observed intently, committing every detail to memory. Charlotte drifted into slumber, her head resting gently against Scarlett's delicate fingers, which were wrapped around the locket that dangled from Scarlett's neck. The snow fell steadily on the Montana night, draping the landscape in a soft veil of potential. A shattered doll rested on the floor as Scarlett detected the faint sound of weeping. The sound yanked her from her sorrow, much like a fish ensnared by a hook. She trailed the gentle whimpers through the dim corridor, moving past vacant chambers where shadows waltzed upon the walls. Upon discovering the source, her heart felt as though it was shattering. 4-year-old Charlotte whimpered as her dolly's arm fell off, tears streaming down her freckled cheeks. The young girl nestled in a pool of moonlight, grasping the detached limb of her cloth doll. Scarlett sank to her knees beside her. "Could I take a look?" she inquired softly. Charlotte paused for a moment, then reluctantly surrendered the cherished toy. Scarlett scrutinized the frayed cloth, a wave of nostalgia washing over her as she recalled her mother guiding her through the art of sewing when she was just a little older than Charlotte. "I'm confident I can mend this," Scarlett remarked as she pulled out the small sewing kit from her pocket, a remnant of her Boston days that felt like a distant memory now. "Are you interested in watching?" Charlotte watched intently, her eyes wide with curiosity as Scarlett skillfully threaded the needle under the soft glow of the lamp. The little one edged nearer, her tiny shoulder brushing against Scarlett's arm. Charlotte whispered, "My mama used to mend my dolls." Before she ascended to the heavens, Scarlett's fingers paused for a brief moment. "My mother also ascended to heaven," she revealed, her fingers brushing the locket resting against her throat. "She showed me the art of repairing things." As she toiled, Charlotte's eyelids began to droop. Before long, the child's head rested gently against Scarlett's shoulder, her breaths growing deep and steady. The doll had been repaired, yet Scarlett found herself unable to rouse the slumbering girl. Instead, she embraced Charlotte and gently lifted her back to bed. The hallway groaned softly under her steps as she stepped into the children's room. To her astonishment, 8-year-old Mason was alert, propped up in bed with a look of concern on his face. "Is Charlotte doing all right?" he murmured. "It's merely a doll emergency," Scarlett said with a grin. "Everything is resolved now." As she tucked Charlotte in, Mason's uneven breaths drew her notice. The boy attempted to conceal it, yet each breath escaped him with a faint wheeze from his chest. "That cough sounds troublesome," she remarked, approaching his bedside. "Is there pain in this area?" Her hand softly brushed against his chest. Mason nodded, taken aback by her insight. "Dad says I'll eventually move past it." "Perhaps," Scarlett conceded. "Yet we could assist in its progress." She recalled the herbs nestled in her trunk, the plants she had gathered and dried with her own hands prior to departing from Boston. "Would you like me to create something that could assist you in breathing more comfortably?" The boy's eyes sparkled with hope, revealing the answer she sought. In the kitchen, Scarlett toiled under the soft glow of the lamp, bringing water to a boil and blending dried herbs with care. She sensed a presence and turned to see 10-year-old Amelia standing quietly in the doorway, her flowing nightgown giving her the appearance of a delicate specter. Scarlett explained that her brother was struggling to breathe. "I'm creating something to assist." Amelia's voice was barely a whisper as she recalled how Ma would brew him tea whenever his chest felt tight. The girl had not spoken so many words directly to Scarlett since she had arrived. "Are you willing to lend a hand?" Scarlett inquired, extending a wooden spoon to the girl. With a moment of uncertainty, Amelia took a step forward. They combined honey with the steaming cup, creating a warm blend. The kitchen was alive with the delightful aroma of herbs and honey as Amelia revealed her surprise. "Mason was just an infant when Ma fell ill. He has little recollection of her." Scarlett felt a constriction in her chest. It sounds incredibly challenging for everyone involved. Pa avoids discussing her, Amelia went on, her gaze locked on the swirling liquid. He stows her photograph when it stirs feelings of sorrow within him. Just as Scarlett was about to reply, soft little footsteps made their way into the kitchen. Charlotte emerged, pulling along her freshly repaired doll. "I woke up and you were gone," she said, her voice laced with accusation as she turned to Scarlett. Scarlett lifted the cup and said, "I'm preparing medicine for Mason. Are you interested in joining us to deliver it to him?" Charlotte nodded, intertwining her small hand with Scarlett's as effortlessly as if it were a long-established habit. Holding a steaming cup in one hand and Charlotte's small fingers in the other, Scarlett guided the way back upstairs, with Amelia trailing closely behind. Mason's expression lit up at the sight of all three of them walking in. "Is that intended for me?" he inquired, glancing at the cup. Scarlett confirmed it was a unique breathing medicine. "I assure you, it will be enjoyable." With a careful sip, Mason felt the warmth of the drink, while Charlotte gracefully settled onto the bed next to him. Miss Sophia proudly displayed the repaired doll, showcasing her handiwork on Molly's arm. "She's taking care of everyone tonight," Mason remarked between sips, his breathing already sounding more relaxed. Amelia lingered close by as Scarlett softly made her way to the bed. "There's space for both of you." The girl appeared to ponder the invitation for a considerable time before she gradually took a seat, her tense demeanor slowly easing as Mason completed his medication. "Are you interested in a tale?" Scarlett inquired, observing the way the children's eyelids began to droop, yet none appeared inclined to head back to their own beds. "Absolutely," Charlotte replied, drawing nearer to Mason, who was beginning to relax more comfortably. Scarlett started with her mother's cherished story of a family of birds that constructed their nest amidst a raging thunderstorm. As she narrated, embodying various characters with distinct voices, even Amelia leaned in closer. As the mother bird rescued her little ones from the flood, all three nestled close, captivated by her every word. As the tale drew to a close, Charlotte had drifted into a deep slumber, her head resting gently on Scarlett's lap. Mason's breathing had settled into a tranquil rhythm of sleep. Only Amelia stayed alert, her contemplative gaze examining Scarlett's features. "You weave tales just like Ma did," she finally remarked, her words carrying both praise and a challenge. "I'm not here to take your mother's place," Scarlett said softly, "but I would love to be your friend, if you're open to it." Amelia pondered this for a moment, then gave a single nod, before resting her head on the pillow next to her siblings. Before long, her breathing had softened, drifting into the realm of slumber. Scarlett nestled among the children, hesitant to interrupt their play. She hummed gently, an ancient lullaby her mother used to sing, as the night enveloped the farmhouse. Outside, the snow kept cascading down, yet within, a warmth had started to blossom. The rocking chair in the corner called to her, and Scarlett gently freed herself from the knot of children to take a seat in it. From this perspective, she could observe all three as they rested. She hadn't intended to drift off, yet the day's happenings and the warmth of being needed had exhausted her. She stirred awake to the soft glow of early dawn and the unsettling feeling of being observed. Benjamin lingered in the doorway, his face a mask as he absorbed the unfolding drama. His three children rested soundly in one bed, while Scarlett maintained her watchful presence from the rocking chair. Mason struggled to catch her breath, she murmured gently, uncertain if she had crossed a line. Benjamin entered the room, his eyes drifting from his slumbering children to Scarlett. For a fleeting instant, a gentle warmth flickered in his gaze. "Thank you," he murmured, the phrase laden with deeper significance than its straightforwardness implied. As he prepared to depart, Scarlett's gaze fell upon an object she had previously overlooked, a small daguerreotype resting on Mason's bedside table. A woman with Amelia's intense gaze and Charlotte's warm smile looked back at her, Benjamin's late wife continuing to watch over her children. Scarlett caressed her locket, a quiet connection flowing between her and the woman captured in the image. Various journeys, one goal, nurturing these three beloved beings. The scream pierced the tranquil morning, fracturing the silence like glass shattering against stone. Scarlett halted her words, the chalk slipping from her fingers as she hurried to the window. Outside, Charlotte retreated cautiously from an unseen presence lurking in the tall grass, her face pale with terror, Instinctively, Scarlett lifted her skirts and fled. The screen door banged shut behind her as she sprinted across the yard, her heart pounding fiercely against her ribs. Mason and Amelia trailed closely behind. "Snake!" Charlotte exclaimed, her finger shaking as she pointed. Scarlett lifted the little girl into her embrace just as a rattlesnake emerged from the grass, its ominous rattle echoing around them. The diamond pattern on its back shimmered in the morning light as it coiled, poised to strike. "Stay right where you are," a commanding voice instructed. Out of the blue, Benjamin emerged, gripping a shovel tightly. In a single fluid movement, he eliminated the danger, then promptly examined Charlotte for any signs of bites or scratches. "You're safe now, my dear," he whispered, a wave of relief spreading across his features. Charlotte pressed her face into Scarlett's neck, her petite frame trembling softly. "Miss Sophia arrived in a flash," she murmured. Benjamin's gaze locked with Scarlett's, transcending the space above Charlotte's head. A silent understanding lingered in the air between them. Thankfulness, admiration, maybe an unspoken connection that neither was prepared to acknowledge. Scarlett remarked that the lesson on Montana wildlife had just taken on a vivid reality, trying to maintain a sense of lightness even as her heart raced. A subtle smile played at the corners of Benjamin's mouth. "It might be best to carry on with our learning inside today." As they strolled back to the house, Benjamin's hand fleetingly brushed against the small of Scarlett's back. A moment so swift, she might have conjured it, yet it ignited a warmth within her that surpassed even the embrace of the spring sunshine. The kitchen table transformed into their classroom once more, with Charlotte determinedly perched in Scarlett's lap for the rest of the morning. They had just completed their arithmetic when the sound of hoofbeats drew near to the house. Not a single horse, but multiple, their cadence indicating intent rather than mere social call. With a sudden movement, Benjamin's chair dragged across the floor. "Stay inside," he commanded, his demeanor shifting as he approached the window. Scarlett drew the children nearer, sensing the shift in the air. She proposed that we engage in some quiet reading practice, yet her gaze stayed locked on Benjamin's stiff posture. 3 riders appeared in sight through the window. Their horses were exceptional creatures, more meticulously cared for than many in the industrious community. The gentleman before me sat upright in a lavish saddle, his dark coat and gleaming silver watch chain signifying his affluent status. "Hargrove?" Amelia murmured, her voice unexpectedly strained. "Who is Mr. Hargrove?" Scarlett inquired softly, her gaze fixed on Benjamin as he retrieved his rifle from above the door and stepped out onto the porch. Mason's expression transformed, mirroring the stern visage of his father in a strikingly compact form. "He possesses the expansive ranch situated to the north of this location. Pa claims he's working on acquiring all the water in the valley. After Ma passed away, he proposed to purchase our farm," Amelia added, her voice sinking to an even softer whisper. "Pa instructed him to head directly to—" She paused, her gaze flickering to Scarlett's expression. Father firmly declined his request. Outside, the discussion had escalated into a fervent exchange. Even with the windows shut tight, the essence of the conversation was clear. Hargrove's voice escalated, met by Benjamin's resolute reply. The 2 men stood beside Hargrove, their presence imposing, with hands resting nonchalantly near their holsters. Mason pressed his nose to the window glass, explaining how the creek is drying up earlier each year. "Mr. Hargrove intends to construct a dam on his property. That would result in our fields being parched by August." Scarlett voiced her realization that the crops would fail. The Blackwood farm may not have been expansive, yet it unmistakably represented Benjamin's dedication and the promise of his children's future. The dispute outside intensified. Hargrove's face flushed as he pointed an accusatory finger at the creek that delineated the eastern edge of the Blackwood estate. One of his men shifted his hand toward his gun, the movement intentional and menacing. Fear solidified into resolve within Scarlett's heart. She had dedicated her existence to sidestepping conflict, yet now felt an undeniable pull toward the door. "Remain with your brother and sister," she directed Amelia, her tone more composed than her inner turmoil. The fresh spring breeze brushed against her face as she emerged onto the porch. Benjamin's shoulders tensed at the sound of the door, yet he remained facing away. "No legal right to block access," Benjamin asserted, his knuckles pale against the rifle barrel. "Legal rights are available for purchase, Blackwood," Hargrove responded with ease. As with everything else in this realm, Scarlett pressed on until she found herself next to Benjamin. His swift sideways glance blended astonishment with caution, yet she feigned ignorance. "Mr. Hargrove," she addressed him distinctly, infusing her tone with a sense of warmth. "It's truly delightful to encounter a neighbor of Mr. Blackwood. The children have shared a wealth of information about the notable families in the area." Her sudden arrival and courteous manner briefly puzzled the men. Hargrove's bushy eyebrows arched as he scrutinized her, evidently attempting to recall her connection to the Blackwood farm. "And who might you be?" he inquired at last. Just as Scarlett was about to respond, the screen door let out a familiar creak as it swung open once more. Charlotte rushed out, brushing aside Amelia's desperate reach for her nightgown. The young girl's copper curls danced with each step as she dashed toward Scarlett, enveloping her skirts in a warm embrace. Charlotte declared with unwavering confidence, "She's going to be our new mama." The words lingered in the atmosphere, reminiscent of smoke curling up after a gunshot. Scarlett sensed Benjamin freeze beside her as Hargrove's face transformed from bewilderment to a keen, strategic curiosity. "Is that really the case?" Hargrove's gaze sharpened just a bit. It appeared that congratulations were warranted. Benjamin cleared his throat, yet remained silent, offering no challenge to his assertion. Scarlett sensed warmth flooding her cheeks, yet maintained a calm demeanor, her hand resting gently on Charlotte's shoulder in a protective gesture. "How gracious of you," she responded calmly. "Maybe we could delve into this water rights dispute more effectively over a cup of coffee. This morning I baked a delightful apple bread." The invitation was extended with the assuredness of someone at ease in her position as the mistress of the home. The unforeseen turn toward civility led to a brief standstill. Hargrove's men shared uncertain looks, evidently caught off guard by this tactic. "Perhaps another time," Hargrove finally remarked, tipping his hat in a feigned gesture of respect. "We have consumed a significant portion of your family time." The silence before family held a profound significance. As the men rode away, Benjamin let out a slow breath, easing his grip on the rifle. "That was risky," he remarked, though his tone carried more bewilderment than fury. "Hargrove commands respect and should not be underestimated." "Neither are you," Scarlett replied softly, her gaze tracking the departing riders. "Your children were observing." Charlotte pulled at her skirt. "Did I say something incorrect?" she inquired, her lower lip quivering just a bit. Scarlett lowered herself to meet the child's gaze. "Absolutely not, darling. You caught us off guard, that's all." Benjamin leaned his rifle against the porch rail, running a hand through his copper hair, which now shimmered with more silver than it had when Scarlett first arrived. His expression was inscrutable as he glanced between his youngest daughter and the woman who had bravely positioned herself beside him in the face of danger. "Return indoors with your brother and sister, Charlotte," he said softly. "Miss Mercer and I must have a conversation." After Charlotte had complied with hesitation, an awkward stillness enveloped the space between them. The meadow grass swayed gently in the spring breeze, seemingly unaware of any significant events, yet Scarlett sensed a profound change in their meticulously crafted order. "I'm sorry for interrupting," she finally admitted. "It simply wasn't where I belonged." "No," Benjamin agreed, his tone devoid of any reprimand. "Your presence certainly eased a situation that could have taken a different turn." Scarlett mustered her bravery. "The kids shared their thoughts on the water dispute with me. Is it a matter of great importance?" Benjamin's eyes drifted toward the far-off creek, where sunlight shimmered playfully on the water's surface. "Quite serious. Hargrove possesses wealth and has established ties with the territorial government. I possess a farm in need of water and 3 children who require safety." "And now it seems a fiancé," Scarlett remarked, trying for a casual tone that did little to hide her unease. A fleeting smile graced Benjamin's lips before it vanished. "Charlotte possesses a vivid imagination." Scarlett observed softly that children frequently express their desires as if they were reality. "She longs for her mother." Benjamin's jaw clenched as he pivoted to confront her directly. "I hope what Charlotte said didn't make you feel uneasy." "My presence here speaks for itself," Scarlett replied candidly. "The terms of our agreement were established right from the start." The evening crickets started their melodic symphony as the sun descended, stretching shadows across the yard. From afar, Mason and Amelia stood by the kitchen window, their expressions heavy with concern. "I ought to begin preparing supper," Scarlett remarked, shattering the lingering silence. "The kids have reached their limit of excitement for the day." Just as she was about to leave, Benjamin's voice called out to her, halting her steps. It was the first time he had spoken her name, Scarlett. I appreciate your support and solidarity. The straightforward recognition brought her a warmth that felt almost excessive. That's what, she held back from saying. Family does, and instead concluded, neighbors do in Montana, isn't it? Unite in the face of challenges. Indeed, Benjamin responded with contemplation. I guess that's the case. That evening, once the children had drifted off to sleep, Scarlett found herself seated on the porch steps, immersed in the soothing symphony of the Montana wilderness at night. The expanse of the star-filled sky above enveloped her in a sense of both insignificance and a peculiar sense of belonging, a paradox that mirrored her deepening and intricate emotions regarding the Blackwood farm and its residents. As the screen door let out a familiar creak behind her, she instinctively knew it was Benjamin without needing to look back. He positioned himself next to her on the step, near enough for her to sense the warmth emanating from his arm, yet they remained unconnected. After a lengthy pause filled with a comfortable quiet, he remarked that Hargrove would return. I understand. This isn't your battle. Scarlett's fingers traced the contours of her locket, a soothing presence amidst the shadows. No, she conceded gently, but they belong to you. The silent reality lingered in the air, revealing that in the 2 months since she had come, the Blackwood children had transformed into much more than mere students or fleeting responsibilities, while their father had evolved into something she hesitated to acknowledge, even within her own thoughts. The arrival of spring thaw signals that the stage will soon be operating on a regular schedule, Benjamin remarked, his tone deliberately even. If you still wish to return east. Scarlett gazed at the strange Montana stars that had unexpectedly become her companions in the night. The idea of departing filled her with an unexpected heaviness in her chest, a feeling she hadn't anticipated upon her arrival. Indeed, she murmured, yet the sound seemed empty. As they had agreed, the night insects filled the silence with their relentless melodies, neither recognizing the hesitation that tinged her reply, nor the fleeting relief that washed over Benjamin's face when she refrained from suggesting a departure date. Crimson surged to Scarlett's cheeks as murmurs coursed through the schoolhouse with the speed of a blazing inferno. The spring social was meant to be a celebration, yet she found herself longing for the wooden floor to just open up and engulf her entirely. Women gathered in corners, casting furtive looks in her direction while concealing their mouths with gloved hands. Men exchanged knowing glances at Benjamin. The whispers had evidently arrived before them. There she is, the desolate woman from Boston. Someone whispered just loud enough for Scarlett to catch the words. Hours had been spent in meticulous preparation for this evening. Scarlett dedicated the afternoon to meticulously pressing her finest dress, assisting Amelia in styling her hair with blue ribbons that beautifully complemented her eyes, and reassuring Mason that, indeed, his cowlick could be tamed with a bit of water and a touch of patience. Charlotte spun around in her Sunday dress, proclaiming it the most extraordinary night ever, as Miss Sophia was joining them. What once was innocent excitement now seemed like a harsh jest. Across the room, Benjamin lingered by the refreshment table, his Sunday suit making him appear as out of place as a wolf wearing a collar. As their gazes intertwined for a fleeting moment, he averted his eyes, concentrating deeply on the punch bowl, as though it held the mysteries of existence. Miss Sophia, Charlotte pulled at her skirt. Shall we dance? Dad says I'm too small, but perhaps if you spoke to him. Before Scarlett could respond, a woman glided over, graceful in a green silk dress that likely cost more than Scarlett's entire 3-month teaching salary back in Boston. Her smile lacked warmth, failing to illuminate her eyes. You must be Miss Mercer, the woman remarked, offering a gloved hand. My name is Margaret Fletcher. My husband holds the position of bank manager in our town. Her eyes scanned Scarlett with a detached evaluation. Everyone has been intrigued by Benjamin Blackwood's mail-order bride. Scarlett felt a constriction in her throat as she took the handshake. Mr. Blackwood has graciously engaged my services to instruct his children, she explained, maintaining her composure, even as anxiety twisted within her. How forward-thinking of him, Margaret responded, though I question whether education is genuinely what 3 motherless children require the most. Her gaze darted pointedly in Benjamin's direction. It's unfortunate to hear about your situation. Benjamin had always dreamed of having a big family. The words landed with the force of a punch. How had this woman come to possess such intimate knowledge? Scarlett's hands quivered gently as she adjusted her skirt, contemplating the right words to say. Charlotte glanced upward, a look of bewilderment flickering across her delicate face. "Which condition are you referring to? Are you feeling unwell, Miss Abby?" The purity of the inquiry lingered in the atmosphere, drawing the attention of those engaged in nearby discussions, their ears attuned to the unfolding dialogue. Margaret explained with a feigned sweetness before Scarlett could step in. "Your Miss Abby can't have babies." A profound sorrow for a woman. Charlotte's brow knitted in concentration. "Yet she has us." The straightforward declaration, spoken with unwavering certainty, briefly hushed the graceful lady. Before she had a chance to regain her composure, Amelia emerged beside Scarlett, her usual calmness transformed into a fierce and protective presence. "Miss Abby teaches us about Shakespeare," she declared, her chin held high, "and mathematics, and the movement of the stars in the sky, and she helps Mason when he struggles to breathe," Charlotte added with determination. "So, what's the verdict?" Margaret made corrections instinctively. "What is it?" Charlotte inquired, her expression one of genuine confusion. In spite of it all, a sense of mirth began to rise within Scarlett. She swiftly masked it as a cough, yet not before stealing a glance at Benjamin's expression from across the room. For the first time that evening, his expression had transformed into something resembling pride as he observed his daughter's supporters rallying around her. The fiddle music rose in intensity as Mason stepped in alongside his sisters, the trio creating a shield of unity around Scarlett. "Miss Abby is familiar with bird calls and constellation names," he added, somewhat perplexed by the situation yet eager to join in, "and she has the ability to make bread rise even in the rain." Margaret's smile faded. How delightful! She succeeded before moving back to a group of women observing the spectacle with open curiosity. Scarlett crouched down to meet the children's gaze, taken aback by their natural instinct to protect themselves. "Thank you," she murmured. "That was truly courageous." "Why did that woman say such unkind things?" Charlotte inquired. Just as Scarlett was about to respond, she heard Benjamin's resonant voice coming from behind her. "Some individuals prioritize the misguided, Charlotte." He remained there, hat clutched tightly, exuding a blend of unease and resolve. "May I have a moment of Miss Mercer's time, children?" The children shared hesitant looks before slowly making their way to the cake table. Amelia cast a fleeting look over her shoulder, her gaze laden with an unspoken caution, refrained from causing her any more emotional pain. Benjamin led Scarlett to the open doors, steering her clear of curious listeners. The spring night outside was filled with the fragrance of lilacs and the faint sound of thunder rolling in from afar. "Apologies," he stated plainly. "I was taken by surprise. This." He waved his hand dismissively at the chattering group within. "How could they possibly have known?" Scarlett inquired, her voice scarcely rising above the melody. Benjamin's jaw clenched. "Mrs. Peterson is employed at the telegraph office. Your doctor's note must have been quite the page-turner." "Absolutely. In tight-knit communities, privacy is a fleeting illusion." Scarlett shut her eyes for a moment, sensing the final remnants of her dignity slipping away. "I regret coming tonight." Unexpectedly, Benjamin agreed. "We ought to have stayed away. The children thrived while learning at home with you." The distinction, the way he included himself in her humiliation, stirred something profound within Scarlett. She raised her gaze to him, truly observing, maybe for the very first time since her arrival in Montana. The rigid contours of his mouth had relaxed, and his eyes conveyed a depth that surpassed simple professional interest. She remarked in awe, "Your children stood up for me. They look out for you." A moment of silence lingered in the air between them. "So do I." The door of the schoolhouse swung wide as a man from the town hurriedly emerged. "The creeks are swelling, with the spring floods arriving ahead of schedule this year. Those residing on the other side of the water should depart immediately while the bridge remains accessible." The tranquil scene was abruptly disrupted as parents hurried to collect their children. Carriages were quickly hitched, and the gathering transformed into a whirlwind of organized chaos. As the rain started to pour, Benjamin dashed toward their wagon, calling out for the children. In mere moments, they found themselves speeding down the rain-soaked path, droplets striking their faces as thunder rumbled and lightning illuminated the darkened sky. Scarlett embraced Charlotte warmly on her lap, while Mason and Amelia nestled closely under a blanket beside them. Benjamin's expression was serious as he pushed the horses to quicken their pace. The creek emerged from the shadows as lightning flashed across the valley, transforming it into a turbulent, wrathful surge of water where the usually tranquil stream once flowed. Half of the bridge lay submerged, as debris crashed against the wooden supports with every relentless surge. "We must proceed on foot," Benjamin declared, bringing the horses to a stop. "The cart is excessively burdensome." "It's far too perilous," Scarlett argued. Benjamin's gaze locked onto hers amidst the downpour. "We are left with no options." The water continues to rise. As they disembarked from the wagon, the real peril revealed itself. What had started as a 6-foot-wide stream that morning had transformed into a 20-foot torrent, murky with mud and sweeping along tree branches like fierce battering rams. The handrail of the bridge stood as the sole visible element above the torrent of water below. Benjamin scooped Charlotte up into his embrace and glanced over at the older children. "Mason, you and Amelia are intertwined, fingers laced together. Hold on tightly no matter what." "What is the situation with Miss Sophia?" Charlotte inquired, her delicate voice almost swallowed by the tempest. "I'll be right behind you," Scarlett promised, though a tight knot of fear gripped her throat as she glanced at the delicate bridge. They advanced as a cohesive unit, with Benjamin at the forefront alongside Charlotte, the older children trailing closely, and Scarlett bringing up the end of the line. The bridge trembled underfoot, its timbers creaking as they battled against the relentless onslaught of water and debris. As they ventured further, a colossal log crashed into the supports with tremendous force. The bridge trembled, and under Mason's feet, a plank splintered. The boy let out a cry as his leg fell through the splintered wood, ensnaring him. "Hey, Mason!" Amelia let out a piercing scream, gripping her brother's hand firmly as he fought to break free. Benjamin found himself unable to pivot with Charlotte cradled in his arms, the bridge teetering precariously beneath them. "What transpired?" he yelled above the thunderous cascade of water. "Mason is in a bind!" Scarlett returned the call, swiftly kneeling beside the boy who was ensnared. Chilled water drenched her dress as she extended her hand into the opening, searching for Mason's foot. "I must remove his boot." A look of panic swept over Mason's face. "Please stay with me." "Absolutely not," Scarlett vowed, her fingers moving swiftly as she fumbled with the laces. "I have you covered." A resounding crack echoed as yet another segment of the bridge succumbed to the relentless forces downstream. They were left with mere minutes, maybe just seconds. "Benjamin!" Scarlett exclaimed. "Bring the girls to the shore!" In a moment of sheer anguish, Benjamin found himself paralyzed, caught in a conflict between his children, grasping the unspoken bond that connected them, a trust forged through a common goal rather than mere words. "We'll be right there with you," Scarlett confidently reassured him, her hand deftly maneuvering at Mason's boot. With urgency, Benjamin hurried Amelia and Charlotte to safety while Scarlett managed to release Mason's foot at last. She lifted him, holding him tightly against her as the bridge quaked beneath their feet. "We must hurry," she urged him, unsteadily getting to her feet. "Are you able to shift?" Mason nodded with determination, even as his ankle began to swell. They pressed on, each step a triumph over the crumbling surroundings. Behind them, the planks slowly vanished into the swirling depths of the water. They were merely 10 feet from the shore when the last support crumbled beneath them. As the bridge began to give way beneath them, Scarlett instinctively took the only action available to her. With a surge of determination, she propelled Mason ahead, watching him crash onto the firm earth as the bridge beneath her swayed precariously. In a fleeting instant, Scarlett sensed herself plummeting. A firm grip seized her wrist. Benjamin lay flat on the bank, one arm reaching out in an extraordinary stretch, having grasped her. Their gazes intertwined, the heaviness of her form looming over them, threatening to drag them both into the rushing water. "Release me," she breathed out. "The children are in desperate need of your help." A fierce urgency flickered in Benjamin's expression. "I require your presence," fueled by a deep sense of urgency. He hoisted her up and over the brink, and they both tumbled onto the muddy bank just as the final remnants of the bridge were consumed by the rushing floodwaters. They sprawled in the rain, struggling for breath as the children hurried to clamber atop them, all 5 entwined in a muddy, quaking mass of survival and relief. As they finally managed to rise, Benjamin held Scarlett close, one arm securely wrapped around her waist, as though he feared she might still be carried off. The children observed in silence, their youthful expressions grave, reflecting a depth of comprehension that belied their age. Later, Benjamin expressed his gratitude, saying, "You saved my son." Upon arriving at the house, the children fell into a deep sleep, worn out by both fear and the sweet release of safety. "You saved me," Scarlett countered, her hand still trembling slightly as she wrung water from her ruined dress. The flames danced in the hearth, sending playful shadows waltzing across the walls of the parlor. Outside, the storm raged on, yet within, a profound transformation had taken place. "What is the reason?" Scarlett inquired abruptly. "What made you express that you required my presence?" Benjamin's gaze flickered in the glow of the fire as he pondered her question. "Indeed," he replied with simplicity. "It's not solely for the kids." The confession lingered in the atmosphere, delicate enough to evade direct recognition yet too important to overlook. "The bridge has vanished," Scarlett finally declared. "The stagecoach is unlikely to make the crossing for several weeks." "Is that truly what you desire?" Benjamin inquired softly. "To depart when the path is unobstructed?" Scarlett gazed at her dirt-smeared hands, recalling the moment they had reached out for Mason with unwavering resolve. How they had supported Charlotte during her darkest hours, how they had led Amelia's fingers through the pages of astronomy books, and how, mere hours earlier, Benjamin had dared to risk it all to seize them. "I just don't know anymore," she whispered, her voice filled with honesty. The creek outside persisted in its untamed course, sweeping away former limits and forging fresh trails across the terrain. Similar to the tide that tugged at Scarlett's heart, erasing the certainties she had held since Boston and leaving fresh possibilities in her path. Amelia's voice was small yet steady as she held out a bundle of train tickets, saying, "I found these in your drawer." Scarlett stood still, the breakfast eggs sizzling neglected on the stove behind her. From the kitchen window, she watched Benjamin and Mason repairing fences far off, oblivious to the shocking revelation their eldest had just shared in the serene morning kitchen. The tickets to Boston, acquired discreetly on her previous visit to town, rested heavily in Amelia's open hand, as if they were silently judging her. 3 weeks had gone by since the flood, 3 weeks filled with unvoiced inquiries and deepening connections. For 3 weeks, Scarlett woke each morning with a resolve to discuss her future with Benjamin, only to find that by evening, the words were still trapped within her throat. "Did you go through my belongings?" Scarlett inquired, more to buy herself some time than out of any genuine fury. Amelia's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, yet her chin stayed proudly elevated. "I was assisting in putting away the laundry." "Stop. They are scheduled for next Tuesday." Charlotte glanced up from her spot at the table, the crayon slipping from her tiny fingers, momentarily forgotten. "What day is next Tuesday?" Smoke started to rise from the eggs. Scarlett swiftly lifted the pan from the heat, her thoughts swirling in a flurry. She intended to have a conversation with Benjamin today. Genuinely she did. But discovering the perfect moment and the right words had turned out to be an insurmountable challenge. "Were you planning to bid farewell this time?" Amelia inquired, and the authentic pain underlying her accusation hit Scarlett with the force of a tangible impact. Or simply vanish like Ma did. "Your mother didn't choose to leave you," Scarlett said softly, stepping closer to the girl. "She was quite unwell, and you're opting to leave." Amelia retreated, evading Scarlett's grasp. Despite being perfectly healthy, Charlotte's lower lip started to quiver. "Is Miss Sophia departing? But who will share tales with me? Who will mend Molly when she falls apart?" The straightforward inquiries broke through Scarlett's meticulously built barriers. She knelt between the sisters, gently clasping one small hand in each of her own. "It's intricate, darling." "No, it's not," Amelia declared with the unfiltered honesty of youth. "It's simple. You either choose to be with us, or you don't." Before Scarlett could articulate a reply to such crushing straightforwardness, the sound of boots echoed on the porch steps. Benjamin stood in the doorway, his face transitioning from a look of ease to one of worry, as he sensed the unease in the kitchen. "What's going on?" he inquired, his gaze shifting from his daughter's faces to Scarlett's. Without a word, Amelia reached out her hand, the tickets unmistakably revealing their intent. One adult ticket from Willow Creek to Boston, leaving next Tuesday. Benjamin's expression remained unchanged as he processed the news. Yet a flicker of something faded in his gaze. a glimmer of hope that Scarlett had not fully acknowledged until it was snuffed out. "Girls," he stated, his tone meticulously measured. "Kindly assist your brother with the chickens." "But Pa," Charlotte started. "At this moment, kindly proceed." Once they had left, Benjamin shut the door with a measured slowness, as if any abrupt action could break the delicate atmosphere that lingered. "When did you intend to share this with me?" he inquired, avoiding her gaze. Scarlett's fingers fidgeted with her apron. "Today. I promise I intended to have a conversation with you today. Just 5 days left until departure." He nodded slowly, showing great thoughtfulness. "Benjamin, I urge you to comprehend the situation." I completely grasped the situation. He approached the window, gazing into the void beyond. "Your intention was never to remain. This was never meant to last for you." The sting of the accusation's unfairness lingered painfully. "Your message was unmistakable upon my arrival. Our arrangement was unfeasible. You desired a partner who could bring forth offspring, and you yearned for a life that extends beyond the confines of this farm." His voice lacked inflection, devoid of feeling, distant from our reach. "That is not accurate." She was taken aback by the strength of her own denial. "I feel like I just don't fit in here." Benjamin pivoted, finally focusing on her as if seeing her for the first time since stepping into the kitchen. "Do you not? Since you introduced him to your herbal remedies, Mason's breathing has been completely untroubled. Amelia is reading at a level 2 years ahead of her age. Not even the fiercest wildcats could pry Charlotte away from you." He advanced a step nearer. "And the incomplete idea lingered between them, too delicate to finalize." A relentless banging at the front door disrupted the tranquility of the moment. Benjamin's demeanor shifted abruptly, his expression hardening as he prepared to respond. Judge Peterson stood on the porch, his typical cheerful demeanor overshadowed by a deep sense of worry. Scarlett's gaze fell upon 3 other men from town standing behind him, one of whom was the sheriff. "Benjamin," the judge stated directly, "Hargroves has initiated an injunction regarding your water rights, asserting that the creek's original path traversed his land prior to your father's redirection of it 3 decades ago." "That's absurd," Benjamin exclaimed. "The creek has always flowed the same way." "He has created a survey map from 1847 that presents a different perspective." "So, it's a counterfeit, is it?" Judge Peterson adjusted in his seat, a hint of discomfort evident. "Perhaps, but his attorneys persuaded the territorial commissioner to consider the case. The property will be surveyed tomorrow." "Is it happening tomorrow?" Benjamin's hands tightened into fists. "That amount of time is far from sufficient to mount a proper defense." The sheriff chimed in, emphasizing the point. "Hargrove prefers you to be unprepared." While the men engaged in their conversation about legal options, Scarlett quietly slipped away to collect the children from the yard. Their voices floated in through the open windows, filled with worry and confusion, too young to grasp the intricacies of water rights, yet perceptive enough to feel their father's unease. As the officials finally took their leave, Benjamin lingered in the vacant parlor, his gaze fixed on an indistinct point in the air. Scarlett moved forward with care, the children following closely in her wake. "What actions can we take?" she inquired softly. Benjamin glanced upward, a look of astonishment crossing his face at the sight of them. Silence. "The creek has consistently followed this path, even in the absence of evidence. Our word stands alone against Hargrove's survey." "What's the story with old Mr. Jenkins?" Mason proposed. "He has resided here for an eternity." "His memory isn't as dependable as it once was," Benjamin responded softly. "His testimony would be dismissed by any court." An idea ignited in Scarlett's mind. "What can you tell me about your father's journals?" It was noted that he maintained meticulous documentation of the farm. Hope momentarily illuminated Benjamin's expression before fading away. "They resided within the storage chest located in the cellar. The flood from last summer devastated everything in that area." Amelia pulled gently at Scarlett's sleeve. "Not everything," she murmured. "Do you recall the trunk hidden away in the attic? The one that features Grandpa's collection of books?" The afternoon slipped away amidst a whirlwind of dust and cobwebs as they rummaged through the attic. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they had uncovered 3 leather-bound journals and a pile of yellowed letters, yet nothing that directly referenced the creek's course. "It's futile," Benjamin decided, shutting the last journal with a decisive thud. "Hargrove is destined for victory. The sorrow in his voice ignited a powerful emotion within Scarlett's heart. Instinctively, she grasped his hand. Absolutely not. We will persevere. Benjamin gazed at their intertwined fingers before lifting his eyes to meet her gaze. The word lingered between them, imbued with significance that transcended the current turmoil. Scarlett sensed the train tickets weighing heavily in her pocket, yet she brushed the thought aside. Absolutely. We, the kids, will stand by you through this together. Once the children had drifted off to sleep that night, Scarlett found herself alone, delving deeper into the family papers. The kerosene lamp flickered, creating playful shadows throughout the attic while she meticulously scrutinized each weathered document. As the clock approached midnight, her weary gaze noticed something unusual. Not in the journals, but nestled between the pages of a weathered Bible. A worn drawing, unmistakably created by a young artist, depicting the farm as it once was many years ago. In the corner, a meticulous inscription in mature script, Benjamin's illustration of the homestead, featuring the creek that has flowed this path since before my father's era. In May of 1847, coinciding with Hargrove's purportedly genuine survey. With her heart pounding, Scarlett rushed down the stairs to discover Benjamin still awake, slouched at the kitchen table amidst a sea of legal documents. Look, she said, laying the drawing out in front of him. It's old-fashioned and distinctly reveals the creek's course. Benjamin examined it with increasing enthusiasm. This is my father's handwriting. And this, he indicated towards another note, this signature belongs to the original land office agent who witnessed the drawing. He gazed at her, a flicker of hope beginning to illuminate his expression. This might rescue the farm. Their faces hovered near one another in the soft glow of the lamp, a current of relief and gratitude weaving between them, more powerful than the rush of the creek. For a fleeting moment, Benjamin's gaze lingered on her lips, prompting Scarlett to lean in just a bit closer. The sound of a child's cry from upstairs shattered the stillness of the moment. Father, I experienced that unsettling dream once more. Benjamin withdrew, the weight of reality flooding the gap that separated them. He elaborated to Charlotte, perhaps more than needed. Ever since she caught wind of the tickets, nightmares have plagued her sleep. The reminder of her intended departure lingered between them, heavy and unyielding like a stone dropped into calm waters. Benjamin rose, the sound of his chair grating against the floor echoed in the room. I ought to visit her. Benjamin, Scarlett called as he approached the stairs. Regarding the tickets, he hesitated without looking back. Let's talk about it after the hearing tomorrow. Address one challenge at a time. The following morning broke with a crisp clarity, the air refreshing and invigorating, the farm rejuvenated by the gentle caress of overnight rain. Scarlett dressed the children in their finest Sunday attire as Benjamin prepared the wagon for their outing, the treasured drawing carefully tucked away in an oilskin pouch. Will this put an end to Mr. Hargrove? What do you think? Charlotte inquired while Scarlett fastened her dress. I truly hope so, darling. So, will you choose to remain? The naive inquiry lingered in the atmosphere surrounding them. Across the room, Amelia feigned disinterest as she assisted Mason with his tie, yet her rigid shoulders revealed her keen curiosity about the response. Today, let's concentrate on assisting your father, Scarlett suggested at last. All other matters can hold off. The territorial commissioner established court proceedings in the quaint town hall of Willow Creek. The building was already filled with intrigued neighbors by the time the Blackwoods made their entrance. Hargrove perched confidently at the front alongside his lawyer, a polished individual clad in a lavish suit that felt strikingly incongruous in the rustic surroundings. As Benjamin unveiled the drawing, Hargrove's assurance noticeably wavered. The commissioner scrutinized the document meticulously, cross-referencing dates and signatures with the survey map supplied by Hargrove. This seems to directly oppose your survey, Mr. Hargrove, he declared, and carries the official endorsement of the land office. Hargrove's lawyer argued that it was merely a child's drawing, barely any official documentation available. A child's drawing, complete with an official witness stamp, has been corrected by the commissioner, lending it more credibility than your survey, which I observe lacks adequate verification. The hearing stretched on for an additional hour, with testimonies weaving through the bustling room. Amidst the turmoil, the children remained surprisingly composed, grasping even at their tender age that the fate of their home was at stake. At last, the commissioner announced his decision. The creek will continue to flow as it does now, with water rights assigned to the Blackwood property, as outlined in previous records. A joyful cheer erupted from the gathered neighbors. Benjamin shut his eyes for a moment, his shoulders dropping in a wave of relief. When he opened them once more, he discovered Scarlett gazing at him, her eyes shimmering with unspilled tears of happiness. It was Hargrove who broke the spell of triumph. He shoved aside his lawyer and faced Benjamin in the aisle. "This isn't over, Blackwood," he growled. "I will seek recourse in the federal court. What are the reasons?" Benjamin inquired with a sense of tranquility. The commissioner's decision was unequivocal. "Based on the assertion that your so-called family is merely a deception," Hargrove's voice resonated through the hushed hall. "It's common knowledge that you brought that woman here as a mail-order bride, only to find out she's as barren as desert sand. She isn't your wife, so your assertion regarding the family homestead holds no validity." Whispers of astonishment spread among the onlookers. Scarlett sensed the ground shift under her as a multitude of gazes focused intently on her. Next to her, Amelia's tiny hand found its way into hers, gripping firmly. The commissioner issued a stern warning. "That's enough, Hargrove. The status of one's family does not influence water rights." Yet Benjamin remained utterly motionless, his gaze locked onto Hargrove with a menacing intensity. "You will apologize to Miss Mercer immediately," Hargrove said with a smirk. "What for?" "Articulating the obvious that is already understood by all." The events that followed transpired with such speed that Scarlett barely grasped the order of occurrences. Benjamin surged ahead, his fist striking Hargrove's jaw with a resounding crack that reverberated through the hall. Hargrove stumbled back, colliding with his lawyer, and the two men fell into a rather undignified pile on the floor. "Benjamin!" Scarlett exclaimed, tugging at the back as the sheriff stepped in to break up the confrontation between the men. Crimson droplets dripped from Hargrove's torn lip as he fought to rise to his feet. "I will ensure you face legal consequences for your actions." "No, you won't," the commissioner interjected with authority, "unless you're prepared for me to reassess your water allotment on your northern properties, too." A heavy stillness enveloped the room as Hargrove weighed his choices. With a fierce glare directed at Benjamin, he regained his composure and stormed out of the hall, his lawyer hurriedly following behind. The journey back was enveloped in an uneasy quiet. The children, affected by the brutality they had seen, gathered closely on the wagon seat. Benjamin navigated the road with a focused intensity, while Scarlett sat with her hands clasped firmly in her lap, a tumult of shame and confusion battling inside her. Only after the children were ushered away to clean up for dinner did Benjamin finally find his voice. His voice was soft and measured. "I regret losing my composure. That was not something the children should have witnessed." Scarlett nodded in quiet agreement, expressing her disapproval. However, they ought not to have listened to what Hargrove expressed. Benjamin rested against the porch railing, his back turned to her as he stared out at the land he had recently battled to defend. "He had a point, didn't he, regarding your reasons for being here?" The anguish in his voice dismantled Scarlett's final barriers. "I arrived here after responding to an ad seeking a mother for your children," she stated with caution. "Not because I was in search of a partner." With a deliberate motion, Benjamin pivoted to meet her gaze completely. "What keeps you here, Scarlett? What prompted you to purchase those tickets?" The pointed inquiries insisted on the honesty she had been sidestepping for weeks. Scarlett inhaled deeply, sensing that she was perched on the brink of a great unknown. "I purchased the tickets out of fear." "What do you mean?" "Of cherishing your children so deeply that parting from them feels impossible. Of nurturing feelings that exceed the boundaries of a professional relationship." Her voice quivered just a bit. "Of desiring something I believed you could never provide. A family that belongs to me." The admission lingered in the atmosphere surrounding them, too significant to be retracted, unfiltered and impossible to overlook. Benjamin approached her cautiously, like one would near a skittish animal ready to flee. "What if I were to say that I'm not interested in having an employee? What if I shared that I'm seeking a partner, a friend, a wife, no matter if more children are in the picture?" Hope, both perilous and delicate, blossomed within Scarlett's heart. "Your initial reaction seemed to directly oppose that feeling when I first got here. I acknowledge my mistake." The straightforward acknowledgement appeared to take a toll on his pride, yet it offered him something far more valuable in exchange. "I believed I understood my family's needs. I was unaware that what we truly required was already present. Instructing my kids, restoring my son's breath. Positioned alongside me in opposition to Hargrove, his voice took on a gentler tone, revitalizing this residence. The sounds of children echoed from within. Charlotte's joyous laughter echoed through the air. Mason's enthusiastic tone. Amelia's gentler replies. The familiar melodies of family life that had, without Scarlett's awareness, transformed into the very cadence of her own heart. Text. The tickets, she whispered. What is the situation with them? Scarlett delved into her pocket and pulled out the neatly folded papers. With careful precision, she ripped them apart, first into halves, then into quarters, allowing the fragments to dance away in the gentle spring wind. I won't be needing these anymore, she said with a straightforward tone. Benjamin's smile emerged gradually, then radiated across his face like dawn illuminating the peaks of the mountains. He extended his hand toward hers, his rough fingers weaving together with hers in a hold that resonated with assurance. In that instance, he remarked, I think I have a question for you. This is a question I should have posed weeks earlier. Within the confines of the room, Charlotte raised her voice, summoning them. A small debacle unfolds with milk cascading across the floor, while a disgruntled feline observes with palpable disdain. Benjamin held onto Scarlett's hand tightly as they faced the house, stepping into the whirlwind of emotions and warmth that defined the family they were starting to create. Inquire during supper, Scarlett proposed, gently squeezing his fingers. In our shared moments, the confidence in her voice, the inclusion of herself in the collective without hesitation, provided all the reassurance we needed for the time being. The stagecoach wheels stirred up clouds of dust as it rolled into Willow Creek, delivering mail, supplies, and the anticipation of new beginnings. Scarlett observed it from the kitchen window, her stomach churning with anxiety. Just 3 days. In merely 3 days, that very coach would whisk her away from Montana, away from the Blackwood farm, away from the children who had somehow intertwined themselves into the essence of her being. A spoon clattered against a bowl behind her. Charlotte had hardly made a dent in her oatmeal. Her tiny face was shadowed by a sorrow that no child of her age should have to bear. Miss Sophia, the child's voice quivered. Is it necessary for you to take that coach? Just as Scarlett was about to respond, Amelia interjected. Absolutely, she does. From the very beginning, she made it clear that her time with us was not meant to be permanent. The older girl's words were straightforward, yet her eyes revealed a deeper truth. For weeks, Amelia had been slipping back into the quiet shell that Scarlett had tirelessly tried to draw her out of. Mason slid his breakfast aside. What if she becomes essential to us? What if the cough returns? I've documented all my remedies, Scarlett stated, striving to maintain her composure. Your father keeps them secure in his desk. The name Benjamin caused all 3 children to turn their eyes toward the door. He had awakened before the first light and slipped away into the fields in silence, a routine that had become increasingly frequent as the day of her leaving drew near. Mason stated plainly that he's upset with you for leaving. Scarlett gently clarified that your father is aware of our arrangement. It's time to complete your breakfast. There are still lessons to finish before I... A sudden crash from above broke her concentration. The children's heads snapped around as a series of hushed phrases escaped their father's lips, words they were never intended to overhear. Remain here, Scarlett commanded, lifting her skirts as she ascended the stairs. She discovered Benjamin in the space that had belonged to her for the past few months. The wooden trunk she had come with was sprawled open on the floor, her humble belongings scattered across the intricately woven rug. Benjamin remained motionless, clutching a small book, his mother's journal, brimming with healing remedies and pressed flowers from a bygone era. He awkwardly explained that he was bringing this down, avoiding her gaze, for your preparation. Thank you, she said, as she accepted the journal from him. Their fingers grazed each other, and he recoiled as though scorched. Benjamin, she started. We need to talk about your pay, he interjected sharply. I've determined the amount due, along with additional funds for the children's education. The professional tone cut deeper than any anger could have. There's no need for that. I firmly believe in fair remuneration for your efforts. My time here wasn't work to be paid for, Scarlett said, holding the journal close to her heart. It was, she paused, hesitant to articulate what it had transformed into. Benjamin averted his gaze, fixating on the far-off mountains beyond the window. The children will feel your absence, and I will feel theirs. Amelia has gathered wildflowers to press just for you. A reflection, she states. Scarlett forced down the knot tightening in her throat. I have been guiding her through the interpretations. Forget-me-nots symbolize cherished memories, while yellow roses embody the essence of friendship. Which flower symbolizes regret? Benjamin whispered so softly that she nearly missed it. Just as she was about to respond, chaos broke out in the yard, with dogs barking and voices raised in excitement. They hurried to the window, their eyes drawn to three men on horseback making their way toward the house. From afar, Scarlett could still identify Hargrove's distinctive broad-brimmed hat. Benjamin muttered a curse quietly to himself. Remain in this place. Ensure the kids stay upstairs if they enter. In mere seconds, he descended the stairs, gripping his gun belt tightly. Scarlett rushed after him, ignoring his command, arriving in the kitchen just as the children eagerly leaned out to catch a glimpse through the window. Within each of you, she asserted with an authority that allowed for no dissent. Amelia, please take Charlotte and Mason to your room and remain there until I arrive. For once, even Mason remained silent. Once they reached the safety of the upstairs, Scarlett quietly made her way to the porch, where Benjamin confronted his neighbors with determination. My answer remains the same, Hargrove, Benjamin declared, his tone sharp and unwavering. Hargrove stepped down, the sound of his spurs ringing out as his boots met the earth. What a pity, Blackwood. Judge Peterson is reevaluating the water rights case due to newly presented evidence. What proof? Benjamin insisted. Hargrove's smile lacked warmth. It appears that someone has been redirecting an excessive amount upstream. Could impact many people's means of making a living. That's a falsehood, and you are well aware of it, Benjamin growled. The air was charged with an electric intensity, reminiscent of a summer storm brewing on the horizon. Scarlett's thoughts surged with intensity. Hargrove had his sights set on Benjamin's land, had been attempting to push him out since last autumn. The water rights represented merely his most recent endeavor. It seemed I had expressed myself clearly during our last conversation, Hargrove went on. Present your offer at a reasonable price, or witness the consequences of this drought diminish all that you've built. We've handled things quite well, Benjamin responded. At this moment, one of Hargrove's associates interjected. But what occurs when that charming Boston woman departs on Friday's coach? 3 little ones and a spread this big. That exceeds what one individual can manage by themselves. Scarlett's cheeks flushed with warmth as Hargrove's eyes fell upon her, partially concealed in the doorway. You're still around, huh? Hargrove gave a sarcastic tip of his hat. I figured you might have grown weary of the role of frontier wife by this point. Benjamin's hand moved instinctively toward his holster. The arrangements made by Miss Mercer are not for you to worry about. Perhaps not, Hargrove conceded, getting back on his horse. It would be heartbreaking to witness these young ones endure hardship simply because their father refuses to acknowledge the truth. A drought is approaching, Blackwood. You may want to think about who will support you through it. As they rode away, Benjamin remained still, his gaze fixed until they vanished beyond the ridge. When he finally turned, his face bore the weight of worry lines that Scarlett had never seen before. He's just putting on a show, she suggested, concerning the judge. Perhaps, Benjamin acknowledged. However, the topic of the drought remains untouched. The creek is already lower than expected for this time of year. Scarlett moved in closer. Could it genuinely impact the farm? Devoid of water, we would forfeit it all. Their words lingered in the air, weighed down by unspoken tension, while the distant laughter of children floated down from the upper floor. Charlotte softly sang a sweet tune that Scarlett had shared with her. Mason's laughter echoed after, the melody of kinship, the essence of belonging. Indeed, Benjamin, the sharp clang of the dinner bell from the Peterson ranch cut through the air with 3 distinct rings. Next, 3 additional ones, a pressing plea for assistance. With urgency, Benjamin clarified, already heading toward the barn. I must take my leave. Scarlett resolved to accompany you, quickly rushing to collect her medical supplies. Benjamin hesitated. The kids. Amelia's mature enough to supervise the others for an hour. This might be significant. 10 minutes later, they sped toward the Peterson place. The wagon jolted over the uneven terrain, smoke rising in the distance. Scarlett felt a wave of relief wash over her. It wasn't the main house, but rather one of the outbuildings. They came upon a scene of turmoil, with men creating a bucket brigade from the well. Women are moving livestock away from nearby buildings. Kids dashing about with soaked blankets. Amidst the chaos, Martha Peterson held her youngest son close, blood trickling from a wound on his forehead. Scarlett leaped from the wagon before it came to a complete halt. "Please allow me to see him, Martha." A boy around Mason's age was struck by falling debris as he bravely attempted to rescue a litter of kittens from the flames of the burning shed. The wound required stitches, yet his eyes remained bright, showing no indication of a more serious injury. While Scarlett toiled, Benjamin stepped into the bucket line. For 2 hours they battled the flames, ultimately managing to contain it before it could reach the house or barn. When they finally wrapped up, everyone was covered in soot and utterly drained, yet they had managed to prevent the worst from happening. "We are truly grateful," John Peterson expressed to them as they got ready to depart. "Particularly you, Miss Mercer. Doc Wilson is currently in Bozeman." Billy could have found himself in serious trouble. "Anyone else would have acted similarly," Scarlett replied modestly. "Not just anyone," Martha clarified, gripping Scarlett's hand tightly. "This valley could truly benefit from more individuals like you, particularly with the arrival of summer. Last year's influenza claimed numerous lives. The journey back was serene, each of them immersed in their own reflections while the dusk adorned the mountains in hues of gold and purple." When Benjamin finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of smoke and deep feeling. "Your performance today was truly exceptional." "So were you?" she responded gently. "Absolutely not, Scarlett. What you have done, your instinctive understanding of how to soothe that boy as you tended to his wounds was remarkable. It felt as if witnessing the emergence of a natural healer." The compliments enveloped her in a warmth that felt almost excessive. "My mother imparted her wisdom effectively. It goes beyond that." Benjamin eased the reins, guiding the horses to a gentle halt as they neared the farm. "It defines your essence." In the yard, the children erupted from the house, their faces a mix of anxiety and relief. Amelia was the first to arrive. We observed the smoke. "Is everyone okay? Were you involved in extinguishing the fire?" Mason pulled gently at Benjamin's sleeve. "Did you rescue anyone, Pa?" Benjamin informed them, gently lowering Charlotte from the wagon. "Miss Sophia did. She restored Billy Peterson to his former glory." The children looked at her with renewed awe until Scarlett ushered them indoors. "That's quite enough thrill for now. The hour has grown late, and it's time for everyone to tidy up." Later, once the children had drifted off to sleep, and the house embraced the soothing sounds of nighttime creaks and whispers, Scarlett discovered Benjamin on the porch, gazing up at the stars. His silhouette stood out against the shadows, shoulders hunched under an unseen burden. "A penny for your thoughts," she suggested, pulling her shawl closer to fend off the evening chill. "They're valued much lower," he said with a weary grin. Scarlett rested against the porch rail next to him. Hargrove's menacing remarks, in part. Benjamin let out a deep sigh, his mind lingering on Billy Peterson today, reflecting on the swift nature of change. One moment pursuing playful kittens, the next feeling vulnerable and frightened. Hill. Kids show an incredible ability to bounce back. Indeed they are. Benjamin pivoted to meet her gaze completely. They have endured the loss of their mother, the journey westward, and the challenge of beginning anew. However, I have my doubts about how they will cope with losing you as well. The words lingered in the air, sincere and unfiltered. "Benjamin, please, allow me to complete my thoughts." He inhaled deeply. "When Catherine passed away, I felt the urge to find someone to fill her role, to nurture our children, and to bear me more sons to help cultivate this land. I sought a partner as one might request a plow or a dairy cow. Essential, fundamental." Scarlett flinched at the analogy, yet Benjamin continued unabated. "And then you came into the scene. It didn't align with my expectations, nor did it match what I believed I desired. And when I discovered that you were unable to have children, I seized that as a reason, driven by fear, pure fear." Scarlett softly spoke of nurturing a bond with someone who could depart, of allowing the children to cherish someone who might not remain. His voice softened, embracing the idea of loving myself once more. The night appeared to pause, enveloping them in a hushed stillness. "What are you trying to convey, Benjamin? Please refrain from boarding that stagecoach." In the shadows, his fingers brushed against hers. "Remain, Scarlett, not merely as a governess or in a fleeting capacity. Remain by my side as my partner, as the mother to our children, as an integral part of this family that you have already nurtured back to health. Benjamin, I am unable to provide you with additional children," she reminded him, her heart pounding fiercely within her chest. He stated plainly that he didn't require any more children. "Your presence is essential to me." Thunder rumbled through the Montana sky while rain hammered the church roof, muffling all sounds except for the conversation between Scarlett and Benjamin. Lightning illuminated the stained glass windows, creating vibrant shadows that danced over their intertwined hands. Not even the fiercest storm could hinder the celebration of today's wedding. The whole town of Willow Creek had trudged through mud to see Benjamin Blackwood tie the knot with his mail-order bride, just 3 months after she almost boarded the eastbound stage. "Do you, Scarlett Rose Mercer, accept this man as your legally wedded husband?" Reverend Thomas inquired, elevating his voice to pierce through the tempest. Scarlett's gaze remained fixed on Benjamin's face. "I certainly do." As the Reverend declared them united in marriage, Benjamin's kiss was imbued with the essence of hope and the freshness of a gentle rain. The church burst into exuberant cheers, with the loudest coming from the 3 children in the front pew, their faces aglow with victorious delight. Mason raised his fist triumphantly as Charlotte cheered enthusiastically. Even Amelia let go of her typical restraint, beaming so broadly that her cheeks must be aching. "Mrs. Blackwood," Benjamin murmured softly into Scarlett's ear as they pivoted to greet their neighbors and friends. The name lingered in the air, a curious blend of wonder and peculiarity. For 4 years, she had existed as Miss Mercer, the spinster nurse whom the woman doctors in Boston had deemed as desolate as winter fields. Now she stood adorned in delicate lace, her hair adorned with wildflowers that Amelia had meticulously woven that morning, enveloped by a community that had slowly embraced her as one of their own. Scarlett recalled the conversation with Martha Peterson from the previous week as they worked together to adjust Catherine Blackwood's vintage wedding dress to suit her own petite figure. She had expressed her concerns about the possibility of rain on her wedding day. "John believes that rain nourishes the earth, serving as a positive sign for a marriage." Scarlett offered a courteous smile, choosing not to reveal that fertility omens were of little significance to her. As they hurried from the church to the waiting wagons, the rain drenching their elegant attire, she found herself feeling grateful nonetheless. The festivities shifted to the Blackwood farm, where tables sagged beneath the weight of covered dishes. Amidst challenging circumstances, each person contributed something meaningful. The drought that Hargrove foresaw had truly come to pass, leaving pastures parched and creek levels alarmingly low. Yet today, the heavens opened, and water poured down generously. John Peterson raised his glass to the Blackwoods as everyone gathered inside the house. "May your family thrive like wheat, nourished by summer rain." Benjamin's grip around Scarlett's waist grew firmer as the neighbors lifted their glasses filled with cider and whiskey. His eyes posed an unspoken inquiry. Did the unintentional reminder cause her any pain? She responded by raising her glass even higher. "To family," she included, "no matter how it arrives to us." As the lively fiddle music clashed with the booming thunder, Hargrove emerged in the doorway. The atmosphere shifted instantly, discussions fading away like flickering flames extinguished by a gust. He stood there, water cascading from him, hat clutched in his hand, an unexpected display of reverence from someone who had dedicated months to pushing them away. He stated firmly, "I didn't come to cause any issues, just here to pay my respects as any good neighbor would." Benjamin advanced, the strain evident in his shoulders, until Scarlett softly placed her hand on his arm. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Hargrove," she said, cutting off Benjamin before he could utter a word. "Kindly take a moment to enjoy some food before venturing out again in this weather." A glimmer of surprise danced across Hargrove's weathered face, soon giving way to a hint of admiration. He gave a single nod, taking a plate from Martha Peterson while maintaining a careful distance from Benjamin. "The creek is swelling quickly," he remarked between mouthfuls. "You should consider inspecting your lower fields before night descends." It represented the nearest thing to a gesture of goodwill they could expect. Benjamin responded with a brief nod, a hint of tension easing from his stance. After an hour, The rain eased just enough for Benjamin to guide a few men down to examine the creek. Scarlett found herself enveloped by the valley's counsel, a blend of practical insights and heartfelt wisdom for her new journey as a wife and mother. "Don't allow the children to address you by your first name," advised the wise Mrs. Winters. "You are their mother now, not their companion." "Catherine allowed Mason to have too many liberties," another remarked. "The young lad requires a more assertive approach." Martha Peterson whispered, "Amelia's at that challenging stage of life." "My Sarah began her monthly courses at the age of 11. Amelia is likely nearby." Scarlett listened with a courteous demeanor, graciously accepting their well-meaning advice, while inwardly recognizing that her understanding of these children surpassed that of many of the women present. She understood that Mason's nightmares would visit him less often if he allowed a sliver of fresh air to enter through his slightly ajar window. She was aware that Amelia had a clandestine passion for poetry, scribbling her verses in a journal concealed beneath her mattress. She understood that Charlotte needed her doll, Beatrice, to drift off to sleep, nestled next to her, a doll that Scarlett had lovingly repaired time and again. The dialogue turned to the drought and its repercussions, with fields producing only half of their typical yield, cattle becoming gaunt on meager grazing, and the shadow of winter approaching with insufficient supplies. Mrs. Jenkins sighed. "Blackwood is fortunate to have that spring on his property. At least you'll have water during the winter, unless Hargrove finds a way to divert it first," someone whispered. Before further words could be exchanged, the men reappeared, their expressions somber even amidst the festivities. "Creeks were spilling over their banks downstream," Benjamin declared, water cascading from his coat. "The lower pastures at Peterson are already inundated. If this continues, the bridge could collapse once more." Everyone recognized the irony. Following an extended period of drought, they now confronted the looming threat of flooding. Numerous families hurriedly left, anxious about their livestock and belongings. As dusk settled in, others trailed behind, abandoning their half-finished meals and leaving a mess of muddied floors in their wake. As darkness fell, the Blackwoods were the last standing. Mason and Charlotte had succumbed to fatigue hours ago, yet Amelia, with unwavering determination, continued to tidy up, stealing inquisitive looks at Scarlett whenever she believed she was unnoticed. "Is there something you're pondering?" As they finished washing the last of the dishes, Scarlett finally spoke up. Amelia's cheeks turned a deep shade of crimson. "Do you truly consider yourself our mother now? In accordance with the law?" "I'm your stepmother," Scarlett clarified softly. "Indeed, they are legally recognized as part of your family." The girl vigorously scrubbed a plate, putting in more effort than needed. "How would you like me to address you?" It was the inquiry that Scarlett had been fearing. "Choose what resonates with you. Amelia revealed that Charlotte refers to you as Mama when you're not around. Mason mentions that he'll refer to you as Mother since it feels more mature. And you?" Amelia shrugged, suddenly appearing quite youthful despite her attempts to project maturity. "I recall my true mother." "Certainly," Scarlett replied with caution. "Always cherish those memories as they hold great value. The other girls claim I require a maternal figure to guide me." Items. On the journey to womanhood. Scarlett placed her drying cloth aside, softly turning Amelia by the shoulders to meet her gaze. "I would be delighted to assist you with those matters, regardless of whether you refer to me as Mother, Scarlett, or Mrs. Blackwood." She beamed. "Doesn't Mrs. Blackwood sound quite elderly?" That elicited a light chuckle. "Timeless, remarkably ancient." Scarlett nodded with a serious expression. Amelia's smile vanished just as swiftly as it had emerged. "However, you aren't truly my mother," Scarlett conceded. "I am not your mother. Yet family isn't solely defined by biological connections. At times it revolves around the decision to embrace love for one another consistently, day in and day out." The thunder rumbled ominously outside, startling them both. Then Benjamin appeared in the doorway, his gaze gentle as he observed them together. "The bridge is holding," he reported. "However, I've relocated the livestock to elevated terrain just to be safe." Amelia let out a sudden yawn, the day's emotions and excitement finally catching up with her. Benjamin gestured towards the stairs with a nod. "Time for bed, young lady. It's significantly later than your typical hour." Once the girl had ascended, Benjamin moved over to Scarlett, enveloping her in his embrace. For an extended period, they embraced, attuned to the sound of rain tapping on the windows and the faint rumble of thunder in the distance. "Did this align with your vision for your wedding day?" he whispered softly into her hair. "Improved," she answered honestly. "I never envisioned one in the slightest." His fingers glided along the contour of her cheek. "Do you have any second thoughts?" Just as she was about to respond, a faint voice echoed from above. "Father? Mother?" It was Charlotte. Scarlett replied instinctively. "On my way, darling." It was only upon reaching the stairs that the full weight of what had transpired dawned on her. Charlotte called out for her mother, and Scarlett responded without thinking. She cast a quick look over her shoulder at Benjamin, who offered a nod of support. Charlotte propped herself up in bed, her eyes gleaming in the soft glow of the lamp. "I envisioned the rain sweeping our home into oblivion." "It's merely a dream," Scarlett reassured, taking a seat beside her. "The dwelling stands resilient and secure." "Do you enjoy our family?" Charlotte inquired with a hint of drowsiness. "Just like our family." As Charlotte gently fell back into slumber, Scarlett quietly entered Mason's room to ensure he was all right, followed by a visit to Amelia's. The older girl feigned slumber, yet her breath betrayed her ruse. "Good night, Amelia," Scarlett murmured softly from the doorway. "Following a brief moment of silence, I bid you good night." "Mother," a word softly spoken in the shadows, felt like the most cherished gift Scarlett could ever receive. She discovered Benjamin waiting in what had become their bedroom, the master bedroom she had steered clear of throughout her entire stay until this moment. He had included delicate details for her: wildflowers in a jar beside the bed, her books arranged neatly on a small table, her mother's quilt carefully folded at the foot of the bed. "Welcome home, Mrs. Blackwood," he stated with a calm demeanor. Outside, the storm raged on, rain pounding against the roof like restless hands. Yet within these confines, Scarlett discovered a refuge of an entirely different nature. Beyond mere physical safety lies the refuge of connection, of being desired, valued, and selected. As Benjamin's arms wrapped around her, Scarlett sensed the familiar weight of her locket resting against her skin, a final link to her past. For the first time, she lifted her hand and unclipped it, setting it gently on top of her books. "Are you not putting it on?" Benjamin inquired, taken aback. Scarlett gently shook her head, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. "I no longer require reminders of my past losses." She surveyed the space, the dwelling, the existence that had unexpectedly transformed into her own. "Not when I can observe all that I've discovered." Through the window, lightning cast a brilliant glow over the valleys that lay before them. Meadows and woodlands, peaks and heavens, all refreshed by the tempest. Tomorrow will present fresh obstacles. The persistent drought would linger, or the looming threat of flooding would arise. Hargrove may choose to intensify his efforts or uphold this delicate truce. The young ones would push limits, as is the nature of youth. Yet tonight, in this very moment, Scarlett Blackwood felt an undeniable truth resonate within her. She had finally, genuinely returned home.